Christian Cage in AEW, outwork everyone. Is that his mantra, his new slogan, his new catchphrase, his t-shirt? Viewer requested, the subscriber requested rant. What do I feel about Christian coming in? Specifically, CG asked about Christian coming in wearing this t-shirt that says outwork everyone, yet he hasn't wrestled a match yet. Great point, Christian. I don't think anyone else has raised that as far as I know. I think the idea is that's what he plans to do. That's what he wants to do, is to outwork everyone. That's his scheme, his plan. I used to have a show called Messier Mantra, which you can still watch a lot of new episodes being released. But Messier Mantra, I would ask each guest to have a mantra, and I guess that's Christian's mantra, outwork everyone. How do I feel about it? Does he deserve to use that? I'm not sure. He'll have to prove it. And he's had that safety net for most of his career, but not all of it, with WWE. I think you could maybe agree that Christian's best days were actually in TNA wrestling. When he was a featured main event guy, he was a hot hand. He got the world title of TNA with I think he beat Jeff Jarrett. I'm not sure who he lost it back to. Was it Kurt Angle? Was it somebody else? But Christian, you know, here's the thing with Christian. I'm just going to talk about Christian for a bit here. How I feel about him. I think Christian is a wrestling fan's wrestler, meaning that there is no, as far as I know, not a great amount of people who get into pro wrestling because they saw Christian on TV. And you could probably say that about 99.9% of the wrestlers, but Christian is not he's not even an airport guy, like Kevin Nash would say, or the old-time wrestlers would say. He's not someone that you walk into an airport, you see Christian or Christian Cage, and your neck turns, hey, look at that guy. He's kind of a regular-sized guy. I mean, he's a guy that would look just as well on a tennis court. He's a nice gentleman, as far as I can tell. He's never had any major problems with anybody. I think the biggest person in the business who's had a problem with Christian is Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon, if you ever heard that story, I think Bruce Pritchard tells it. I think Christian's told it. The story of them wanting to, Vince McMahon, not them, but Vince McMahon Jr., wanting to put a blue dot over Christian's face. He didn't like his face. I think it would have been a great angle, to tell you the truth. I think the blue dot gimmick would have worked. Apparently there's a website somewhere, I haven't seen it yet, where you can look at Christian Cage images with blue dots on his face as what this would have been like if they had done it. I thought Christian was around 2002 or 2003 was doing Christian, at least you were on your own. That was 18 or 19 years ago, folks. And has he ever really overcome the shadow of Edge? Not really. And in WWE, well, I'll take that back. In TNA, I think Christian did, because Edge didn't have the fucking balls to leave the security blanket of WWE and go somewhere else. Christian did. He got a world title run out of it. He had a lighter schedule, probably got just as good of money, had a great action figure from it. If you're a Christian fan and you collect wrestling action figures, that TNA wrestling action figure with the gold suit is really nice. Some of the best wrestling action figures were from TNA, like around 2007. They made a great AJ Styles. They made Beer Money that looked great. Kevin Nash had a nice gray-haired Kevin Nash. I'm not sure if the beautiful people ever had action figures. Sorry, I'm getting all choked up. As far as Christian, though, going back to him, here's the thing. I'm a fan of Christian. That AEW thing when they brought him in the surprise, it was a disappointment. I'm sorry. Christian does not transcend pro wrestling. He's a pro wrestling fan's wrestler. He's not a mainstream guy. As far as I know, I mean, I'm sure he's done something somewhere, but he's never been like a John Cena or a Rock or even a Bret Hart or a Shawn Michaels where they did some outside stuff. Why is this? Look, I hate to say it, but Vince McMahon might have a point. Christian has the personality of a baby face and the face of a heel, meaning his physical face, his nose, his upturned kind of nose and beady eyes. I mean, when Steve Austin called him the creepy little bastard, they really should have played into that. They should have leaned into Christian being a creepy little bastard, being a shit stirrer. They never really pushed him as the top heel or a Weasley heel or even a Roddy Piper-esque, not to put him in the same parameters of Roddy Piper, but I'm just saying a Roddy Piper-esque heel. Maybe he could have managed some guys. You know, Christian could have been a manager and been a wrestler. I believe it was the Bruce Pritchard podcast that said the Un-Americans, I guess it was Christian, who was it, Test, I don't know, who else was it, Lance Storm, that none of those guys really wanted to embrace the heat. And I guess it was a year or two after 9/11, and maybe they feared for their own safety or just didn't want to be distasteful, but that was an opportunity for perhaps for Christian or either Storm or Test to really push themselves and try to get over his top heels, and they didn't do it. What else can I say about Christian? His best work, a lot of people would say, and I would probably say, I'd like to watch these matches again, but there's so many things I'd like to do again. Randy Orton versus Christian 2011 was kind of in the shadows of the CM Punk, Summer of Punk with the John Cena and all that stuff. But on the SmackDown side of things, you had a really nice storyline, almost like two tweeners, Randy Orton and Christian. And I'll be honest, I didn't watch every single one of their matches at that time, but I do recall watching a few, and they were good. They were great. What else can I say about Christian? He's got a weird tattoo. Doesn't he have like a weird tattoo on his shoulder or his arm? It's just not a good tattoo. You know, I think it's just one of those things where we have to just be honest and say life is not fucking fair. I mean, you know, I don't want to geneticize Christian because I think he has fought against that his whole life and his whole career. He's obviously done better than Marty Jannetty. He's obviously not in the shadows of fucking Edge like Jannetty was in the shadows of Shawn Michaels. But if you really think about it, it's like a guy like Christian, and it reminds me of Stevie Richards and Raven. You know, Stevie Richards works his ass off. He's still at 44 or 45 years old, whatever Stevie Richards is. He's in great condition, physical condition. He does his Stevie Richards yoga. But is Stevie Richards a main event guy? Yeah, it's tough to say. But Raven, for where he worked, is a main event guy. I mean, Raven in ECW was a main event guy. Was Stevie ever a main event guy? I think that's a hard sell. I don't think he was. And I think Christian, for whatever the fuck reason, maybe it's just is it 2.5 inches or 3 or 4 inches of height that's different between him and Edge? Not much. Height, maybe, 20, 30 pounds, if that. Just star quality. And hey, look, I mean, it's painful because I might suffer from that. You know, I try to do my goddamn thing. And do people put me in their fucking movies all the time? Do people make me the star that I should be? No. So it's like for guys like me and Christian, I can relate. We have to work harder. We have to outwork everyone. And we don't always get the fucking credit. And is it fucking fair? It's not. So I relate to Christian. I see Christian in myself. I see myself in Christian. But I can't say that I'm going to sit here and protest in the streets for Christian to get a world title match or to have the match of the fucking year against Kenny Omega. I'll say this. I mean, I think Christian started in WWE in, 99? I mean, I think Edge came first and Christian came a few months later. And was that 98 or 99? I think it was 99 for those guys. So he's been wrestling, if you look at it. Christian has been wrestling. Jay, what's his real name? Jay Riso. 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and now 2020s. That's 4 decades he's been a part of. You can say he's done a lot. I mean, I guess if he gets this AEW world title, but he never had the Bruno belt. He had the WWE, world heavyweight title, the big gold belt lineage. He never had the other one, which Edge had several times, meaning the Bruno belt. So I mean, you can't even. He could be like one of the few guys, I guess the first to be the TNA world champion and the fucking AEW champion, unless Omega somehow gets the Impact title. But does the Impact title the same as the AEW title? I mean the fucking TNA title. I don't know anymore. I'm not opposed to Christian. I feel his pain. I feel his sorrow, which is working your fucking ass off. Look, he's made good money in this goddamn wrestling business, okay? But has he ever been appreciated? Has he ever been fully loved and adored? No. And maybe it's the luck of the fucking draw. He just was born with that snout, that weird kind of creepy little bastard face, and rather than play into it and try to be a Tully Blanchard type, which I think is what Christian really ultimately is, he's a Tully in search of a flair, but there was no four horsemen for him to join, meaning Christian. If they had pushed that fucking Un-Americans thing with him and Storm and whoever the fuck, Test, maybe that could have been it. I really don't know. I mean, I think, here's the thing, and if you may not like this statement, but for wrestlers who spend most of their career in WWE and get pigeonholed or misused or gimmick saddled or just not worked very, they don't get used properly, whatever that means, right? For them to just leave at a certain age and just go off and think that the rest of the wrestling world owes them a fucking favor, it's a little bit arrogant and it's a little bit narcissistic. I mean, for whether it's Christian, Big Show, Moxley kind of got away with it because he was one of the first, or Jericho, or whoever the fuck, Matt Hardy. All these guys that feel like, oh, I wasn't used properly. Or take another example, Mike Kanellis, another guy I consider a friend, but Cody, all these assholes, they leave the big fucking diaper of WWE and they feel like they can go take a shit everywhere and we all have to clean it up for them. And that fucking age-old promo, and Cornette nailed this pretty well, but the age-old promo of, oh, they weren't using me properly in New York, and here I am to show what I can do. It's like, okay, what does that fucking mean? Like, I'm just sick of, here's another thing, a subtopic. I'm sick of a wrestling storyline or a series of storylines that are dependent on the fan kind of knowing the behind-the-scenes stuff. Like, if the storyline is dependent that the fan has to acknowledge, please stop talking, I'm doing my rant. If the fan has to acknowledge, yeah, please. If the fan has to acknowledge or take a moment to lapse out of the magic what-if of the wrestling performance and say, oh yeah, the office didn't like this guy, or the office wasn't pushing this guy, or oh, they misused him. If you're taking yourself out of that mentally to check in and break Fabian's heart and say, yes, this is all a worked, scripted routine, and then you're supposed to watch the same wrestler go out and challenge his new fucking company's champion for a match. It's like, oh, everything I did in New York, meaning WWE, was scripted and fake and phony, but everything I'm going to do here in Impact or AEW or wherever the fuck, it's all legit and it's all a shoot contest. You see what I'm saying? Like, to acknowledge the office somewhere else is holding you back basically implies, well, that was phony and scripted, but here I am in the real wrestling that everything is a shoot. It's just another thing that the wrestling fans like myself, we tolerate because we're very forgiving. Pro wrestling fans are the ultimate forgivers, the ultimate enablers. We're enablers to these idiots, to the poor writing, to the poor wrestlers, to Kenny Omega wrestling a doll in Japan and a 9-year-old child in Japan, Kenny Omega, and then still cheering him. We're enablers to these narcissistic fucks who don't take their own business as seriously as they should sometimes, oftentimes, most of the time, and we enable them by continuing to watch them and support them with our fucking money. So, I don't know. Did I answer your question, CG, about Christian? Did I give you the fucking juice? I tried to go around the world with this thing. I took time out from my busy schedule to sit here and think about these things and try to give you some good answers. I don't know if they're good answers. Maybe I'll give you a Christian highlight. I saw a personal Christian highlight. I was at some wrestling show, a WWE show in Boston Garden, I believe. I think it was Survivor Series 2008. And there was 3 world title changes. And one of them was Christian beating Jack Swagger. Was it a world title? No, it was a fucking ECW title. But it was, I think that was like the first or second match of the show. Christian beating Jack Swagger for the ECW title, which it really did feel like the office, whoever the non-Vince office people are, had to convince Vince to give fucking Christian a title run. And so they gave him the fucking ECW title. They gave him the bronze title just to shut him up. And then I think on that card, didn't Triple H defend against like Kozlo, and Jeff Hardy was injured or something, and Edge came out and won. Once again, Edge stealing the thunder over Christian. And then I think in the final match of the night, didn't John Cena like beat Chris Jericho? So kind of interesting. You had Jericho, Edge, and Christian all involved in world title things. Here's a TV highlight, just something I saw on TV of Christian when he beat Chris Jericho at WrestleMania 20 and then got a little smooch with Trish Stratus. That was pretty nice. And of course, Trish had been smooched by Vince McMahon, so she had those germs on her, but 3 years had passed, so I guess she might have been clean by then. So Christian got a little smooch with Trish, which was nice for him. Anything else about fucking Christian? I mean, I went to that 6 Sides of Steel, the Kurt Angle, Samoa Joe thing for TNA, and Christian was there. He's a guy who wrestles matches. I mean, you know, maybe that should be his t-shirt. Christian, a guy who wrestles matches. It's about all you can fucking say. He's competent. He's good. Do I want to say he's great? I mean, define great. I just say he's one of the boys. I mean, without a doubt, Christian is a wrestler. Mike Messier. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like and fucking share the videos. Watch all my stuff. The original playlist. Buy the book. I'm doing all these rants for you guys. Have you purchased my book yet? I'm doing rant after rant upon request like a fucking monkey at a circus. So buy my book. You know, give me the goddamn book buy. Thanks to those that have bought the book, all 3 of you. No, there's been more than that.